Rapidity of violence. Rapidity of violence from corps and banks are much more than I can. So if people want to take away individual rights, you got to take away the corporations and banks and governments' rights too. The creation of these establishments to take away rights from people, when the laws were created for equality, not advancement of one or the other. You got to make it equal. If not, there really is no freedom. As what I said last time, our individual rights are based on a struggle for freedom. But the fact is, if we base our struggle for freedom off of individual aspects, like we are with just looking at gay marriage, gay rights, the sexual orientation rights and everything, if that's all we're going to look at, then that's all we're going to get. The rapidity of violence won't change, because what banks and corporations can do is on a much larger scale than what me can do. What me can do is just what I can do. That's it. And I think that's where one of the problems lays, is within that aspect of, this is how it has to be. We have to work it this way because this is the way the system has to work. When in fact, the system has worked that way many times before. The only difference that outlays what we're living in compared to the Roman Empire, Greek Empire, is that when the Roman Empire was around, the only reason it went out further is because it was trying to gain more land, gain more persuasion over people and control them. The thing is, now we believe that we're doing it to help everybody else, but the thing is, we still have military bases and we're still in a state of war in almost every single place we've ever went to. Actually, in every place we've went to, for war or not, we have a military base in there. So that itself, the creation of that kind of establishment, helps to bring up the kind of thought. And I think that's what really creates one of these major issues, is that we're already in that condition to believe that, and to state to ourselves that this is the kind of life we want to live. The rapidity of violence doesn't matter at that point. And I think that's what I meant last time with, like, she called me an asshole, she must love me. Well, the rapidity of violence, it antagonizes in each individual to mistreat others, to say that's love. So it's the whole love-war thing. Love, hate, love, war, whatever you want to call it. When you've already created something to establish a condition in how people think, the persuasion is huge. Even if it's not relatively, direct. It doesn't have to be. What your actions, what your rapidity of violence is, from any state you're in, it creates that. That's why there's a social tension now. If we're going to ban guns, for example, let's think about that. We're not banning guns from the people in charge. We're not banning guns from police. So now the only ones that will have guns are the outlaws. Even if they're liable to, they have the law on their side. When you have the law on your side when everyone else doesn't, you're an outlaw. Because that means that you have a loophole. And a loophole can create a big destructive process in the end. Because you can do something bad to somebody now, and you have your own fet. You have your own feat of strength, in that you have whatever you need to do so. Boba Fett would dream of that. And thinking of Star Wars or stuff like that, when I think of individual placement of people, that's what it's doing. The rapidity of violence is huge. And it's creating the kind of antagonism that we all, want to fight against. But the thing is, when we try to take away individual rights because of events and historical lessons and historical faults, we're just replacing the way we could care with a law or a rule or regulation, or taking away those laws, taking away those rules, taking away those regulations. But basically put into prison around us and saying that the violence has gotten to a point where I'll give up my rights to be protected from that violence. But the thing is, now violence is now solved with violence in a lot of different fields. So when that's the case, if in fact you voice an opinion, if in fact you do something like I'm doing right now, all you're going to do is state the obvious. You're going to get the same destruction pattern on you. That's the rapidity of violence. So if you were going to take away my rights, you'd have to take away everybody else's too. You wouldn't just take away mine. You would have to take away everyone's, including your own. The wounded heart doesn't break. We make it break. And that's the whole point. If you actually have love for somebody, if you actually have conditional powers to be aggressive, and you get tired. Not tired in the way of, I'm tired of, running after this person, or I'm tired of doing this, that. No. The wounded heart doesn't break. We make it break. So what we establish is saying, emotions are important, or even saying that with what I just said before. When we establish that emotions aren't good enough to deal in what we should have and what we shouldn't have, we do that all the time, though. We take away individual rights all the time for the fact of what happened in the society. So if there was a shooting, everybody would go, oh no, when Columbine itself occurred when there was a ban on assault rifles. There was a ban on guns at that point in that state altogether. So to ban a weapon doesn't take away the violence. The proof is that dispelled rumor is false. You can't ban guns and expect violence to just, it's going to be gone. Because guns are going to be held by the outlaws only. Whether they're people in power or not. I'm not putting anybody down that is in the individual basis without the community of government or corporations around them to have that rapidity of violence. The rapidity of violence can come from individuals just as much as it can come from government. It's the social anarchy that exists that make that problem persist, though. It doesn't just stop within ourselves. It starts within how we treat each other and how we're being treated. So if I were to say, you got to stake this claim with this, you have to make yourself self-assured, I think that's one of the things that makes the wounded heart, break, or at least try to make somebody else's heart break, is because we don't want to deal with the conclusion that they have. Let's say I love a girl and she doesn't love me back. So what? One-sided feelings are not bad. I've heard the same thing from my mother, for example, who said that as long as you're going truly with your feelings, it's not a bad thing. If it's bad to the other person, then they don't like you for who you are then. Because you're not forcing it on them, for one. If you were forcing it on them, you wouldn't be the person you are. That's it. And that's true, If I'm not forcing it on you, then what you claim to be okay with, you're lying about. You're saying that you're okay with me having feelings for you, and then you're automatically using the wounded heart that doesn't break. And you're saying, I'm going to make it break. Well, you don't need me around then. Because if you have to spend the time to make it break, what aren't you paying attention to? What aren't you looking at? Because there's other things in your life that you should be paying attention to. We could look at our friendship, we could develop our friendship, and then within inside that, there's no problems. But within inside what you already are acting as because of my feelings, you're creating the rapidity of violence and emotions too. And I think that goes into what people think. People thinking that if a parent does not give their children attention, it's the child's problem, or son or daughter, saying that, they just want attention. Well, what if the parents don't spend time with their kids? It's not about getting attention at all then. It's about the fact that you have to spend time with your kids, and it does go into a lot of different things. It may not have to do with just one little simple thing, like a Dr. Phil problem that can be solved. Which I don't care for Dr. Phil. My idea is, take the pill, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, take the pill. Just a joke, but when I reconcile my differences with it, it's kind of like saying that, they want attention, and I think a lot of people bug themselves with that and just try to rub off not being responsible for children just to say that. I think too many people do that because not everybody's ego-driven with what they want. I'm not, I certainly do have feelings and have had feelings. Not for every person, not for every single thing, because that's not possible. In its own effect, there is some connection to everything, and there is going to be, within me, within everyone. The one thing that I won't do is try to criticize somebody for their actions toward me, even if it is lesser to create something better. If it's something that hurts me, that's fine, that's their deal. But I'm not going to lower myself and hurt myself even more by saying cuss words, by burying them in some way. That wouldn't solve anything. When I look at what happened with Charlie Sheen, for example, last year, or the other year before, to me, that really was a response that needed to be said. Maybe not in the best way because of, using that kind of, tactless words to attack somebody with, but it wasn't any anti-Semitic remarks at all. It's considered that because, you can make anything anti-Semitic now, but anti-Semitism is actually the definition of somebody who's not just against Jews, who's against a certain races a lot, not just Jews actually. It actually has a longer history than that word. So, and I think that's the frailty of these things, is that regardless of politics, here we go, this is a good one. Regardless of politics, nothing's regardless of politics because everything is politics in its own way. But see, the thing is, you may not agree with me because you think politics is only the things you see on TV, only the things you see in the White House, only things you see in the government, only the things you see between those people and those kind of power conditions. CIA, FBI, banks, Federal Reserve Bank, anything that works in that congregation, UN, name them all, but FDIC, FDA, when we get into it, the fact is politics has been defined by what we see, not what we actually can look at for what politics is. If you look at the definition of it, nothing's regardless of politics. The only reason somebody says that in power is because they don't want anybody to comment or to give any inclination of disagreement towards politics. So they say, regardless of politics, we have to take care of this thing right here. As in what happened recently with the shooting at the elementary school. Regardless of politics. No, there's no regardless of politics because your actions are infinitely in a higher structure than anybody else's. So what your actions perpetrate are going to be a lot worse in the end than what happened at that school. Because more kids have died due to what Israel has done to Palestine, killing only old people and pretty much kids in their missile attacks that have happened. And as such, the other one's shot first. Well, first off, as I said before, Hamas and Mossad were both created by the same government that is right here. So, to believe that every individual in Palestine believes what Hamas does, you're joking. Because they didn't vote them in. As with what happened in Chile, September 11th, 1973. 60,000 people right there, dead. And guess who put that person in power? Oh, here we go again. So when you control and manipulate the kind of situation that happens before, you leave it alone for a while. Gaddafi in power. Saddam Hussein, you don't kill him after the Iraq War the first time. The Iraq War the first time. You actually wait. You wait about 10 years, and we make him an enemy again, and we blame him for 9/11 too. So that's what you do. You want to make an enemy, make him a friend, because then you could tell him you could tell the world he's my enemy now, and everyone will believe you because he was your friend at one point, and you did some big arms dealing with him. As the biggest arms dealer in the world, we are. Where else could they get their weapons from? Please tell me. As the big weapons dealer in the world, there is nobody else. Nobody else comes close to that. And I think that's the big difference. Roman Empire didn't hide what they were doing. They didn't hide at all that they were trying to take over and trying to do it everywhere. There was people who were protesting, doing things like that. And a lot of people say, even in my Roman history class, that it didn't mean anything to them. And they were fine with people just protesting because it was only little circles, couldn't affect anything. And it was obviously during a time when there was no media, there was no stuff like that, so it was a big difference in individuals speaking their minds versus what was happening. And when you look at what regardless of politics means, it means that you better not say anything about my politics, about what I want to do. Because that's the whole point of this, is that everybody says that the people in power are puppets. Well, okay. Whether or not they're puppets doesn't make a difference. If they say things like regardless of politics, that means they don't want you to speak a branch on what they do. Well, you're not going to get me to shut my mouth. Thank you very much. If you would like to throw me in prison or throw me in an internment camp, you can have the fun, as you did in World War II with the Japanese. As you did If you can take away the freedoms that easily, how can we have any freedoms? If you can put Japanese people that came to America in internment camps during World War II, what freedoms do we have? That's not even a race issue at that point. If you could take away those rights that quickly, that easily, where are our rights? They're not there. And that's what George Carlin said. These are privileges. They're not rights. They're privileges. That if you don't step out of line, if you comply, if you don't rebel, I don't say either. I actually don't care for either rebellion or compliance. I don't like either. Because to me, the only thing you can start with is caring about yourself and caring about the message I'm sending right now. That you think it's great. That you don't think it's like, oh, such a grim subject Marcello talks about all the time in his Pink Cloud Radio. Such a grim subject. If it's grim, it kind of means you don't like hearing something that's honestly the truth and just deciding to knock it off as grim, as something dark. Yet, you'll go see a dark movie, Chronicles of Riddick. You'll go see the darkest movie like The Dark Knight and you'll say, I love it. You hear me? Oh, I hate it. Gotham City's corrupt, it's okay. America and the world corrupt, no, not so well. No, I can't deal with that. That's not true. You just got that from a movie. Really? I got that from a movie. Where did I get my bullying from? From a movie? Or from real people? Revenge. Where did I hear it from? Like I heard from my Cal State Long Beach friend who was not a friend anymore, really. After this, I was scared as hell of him. And that's good, because I didn't want to deal with that. He said, I'm going into banking because I want to cheat people. Because I was cheated. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful reason to go to school, Because a lot of people say, people wouldn't go that far. In the field of, people wouldn't take the time to go into a field just to hurt people. Really? Tell that to all the people who went to the military and who are in high position and ranks. Tell that to the people. I'm not putting them down and backstabbing my own soldiers. They're individuals. But there are points where the secrets aren't going to come out. And the secrets may not be that good. They're soldiers alright, and they can handle a lot of stress. But a lot of people who are not soldiers can too. So I wouldn't need to explain that difference. I'd like to thank every woman on this earth who's ever been a mom, who's ever been in any position where they've been hurt. They dealt with it a lot better than anybody in this earth can. And then, that's why it's regardless of politics, because you don't want to hear it. So I break no more. And I can't really say that it would be something you would need to inform me of. Because when we literally talk about what makes us individuals, we always start with what makes you an individual. Remember though, a real friend lets go of everything whenever you need someone there. I think most people don't want a real friend. Most likely because phases. Faking who you are. And just lies in general makes life easier if you know liars only. It does not hurt then as much if they are like you. If you're a liar and all you know are liars, or all you are is a liar, or all you know are liars that are lying to you, you being a liar isn't so hard. But injecting the kind of fortitude and magnesium to tell the truth, it's a lot. Because you may not get anything out of it at all. In fact, you may get nothing out of it. But how much you get out of a lie, whether it's power, whether it's control, will have no defense mechanism at some point. Because your defense mechanism is lies. That's the thing. If you use your defense mechanisms for that right away, where does it end? Because a defense mechanism can't go on forever. My defense mechanism is not here. I don't know what my defense mechanism is, but it certainly isn't what yours is. And I think that's the thing about when you place dynamite next to somebody. Do you think they're just going to sit there? Maybe. Maybe some people will. And I think that's the idea of what a real friend is that let's go of everything. Whenever you need someone there. And not in the aspect of, yes, I understand there's going to be differences. We're not going to all be able to. There's a big difference. Myself, I don't know if I'd go to some people, but that isn't because I feel like they're not worth it. I just wouldn't know what the gesture would mean. To me, even. I think that's the difference. Even if you're in the unknown. And I don't try to establish that it's intolerance to be the unknown. I think it's good. But on the same end, what this means is not just one-sided. You know, like I said, a real friend lets go of everything. Which means not only do I have to let go of everything, but you do too. There are things in your life that may hang on, that you're hanging on to, that aren't me. That you think are me. You know? And I think that's where we get the establishment of what people are, what men are, what women are. And I think that's where we get these ideas of, well, this is what men are to me, this is what women are to me. And I think a lot of people try to, you know, pull back and try to say, no, that was just what I experienced with that guy. But you used it right here. You used it right here to intimidate the kind of relationship we're in, whether we're friends or whatever. So to use those kind of retaliations, I think most people don't want a real friend. Like I said, they just want somebody to lie to. They just want somebody to lie to. If I could lie to you, I feel so much better. I have such a good compromised... I don't have to be in a compromised position to tell you the truth. I could tell you lies all the time and I'll feel comfortable. If you feel more comfortable telling lies, oh, Jesus Christ. I could walk away from that. And that's good because, damn, I would not want to stay in that. If you're definitely comfortable telling lies, that's up to you. You know, no one's forcing you to tell the truth. But if you feel comfortable telling lies, in a matter of factly, I'm glad that I'm out of the picture sometimes, especially with that. If what makes you comfortable is a lie, then there's going to be a lot of problems. You're not going to have good intentions with me. You're going to have hostility toward me, in fact, because what you establish in your own catharsis of mind is that the end doesn't have to be good, because what your lies are. It gives permission to make a bad ending. If you lie all the time. It gives permission to make a bad ending to any friendship, relationship, anything. Because you've already made permission granted by telling me lies. By telling yourself lies. So your lies are the perpetration to allow any end. Any ends meet. See, that's why I don't like liars. Because liars do that. It's not like Pretty Little Liars on TV or any show that shows you a liar. It doesn't happen like that. It's a nice method to show, to make people feel better about lying. But it isn't the truth. In fact, that's why I'm here speaking to you in Pink Cloud Radio. Because if it was the truth, none of my audio would ever existed. If it was the truth what they're saying out there, they just have a good storyline that is based on fact. But then the rest is extracted and justified, made into a concrete story that can throw into the face and make you do something without alteration. You know, without alteration. You know, when people say they've made too many alterations to the Star Wars movies, the old ones, you've made too many alterations to yourself. You're bothered by Ewoks blinking? I'm bothered by you lying and being okay with it. How's that? I don't like your alterations. I could care less if they change Star Wars 100 times over. But if you make alterations to yourself, not physically, if you inactfully, tactfully try to throw in my face the alterations that you create of my character or of yourself, you're gone. Reputation is the basis of that. Because most people can say, well, you can't hurt my reputation if I only lie. Because it means all the lies will be truth. They will be veiled. They won't be the exact truth, but they'll be the truth in some form. No, they won't. They'll be a lie. All of them will be a lie. In fact, there'd be a hard basis to come back to, because now you're creating a huge character that's not real. A huge character that's never existed at all, and you're defining it when you're in space and time with me. Bye. So, and by meaning by that friendship, of course. A lot of people think that being selfish and doing things for what you want is the answer. Though the truth, setting you free is true if you want to be set free. Finding truth you don't like is the exact result you'll get, but acting selfish with anything and anyone burns out the free truth. Meaning that you can't get free truth at some point. It's not about working for it, it's not about, well, it costs money or something. No. At some point, you're taking the side that you want. You're taking what you really want. Would you rather have the selfishness and doing things for what you want? If you do, and I'm not saying that we all don't in some way, but if your basis, like me, with the music I listen to, all the music I listen to, it isn't based on my emotional attraction only. It's based on my physical, my mental state, my emotional state. Every state is there in all the musics I listen to. So when a lot of people think that that's being selfish or just trying to get what you want, no, it's not. All this stuff has some impact in my life, and that's why I would say I can't say that Pink Cloud Radio is only from me. It's from everything that I've ever done, ever known, ever bought, ever, seen, ever listened to. Ever walked across, ever walked by. Because it doesn't just come from me going, well, I'm going to say this today. Though there's some truth to that too. And just like that, that's what finding truth is. If you don't find truth that you like, that's a sorrowful thing in general, because now you're saying that, I searched for truth but I don't like it. Well, that's your decision at that point. No one else built that truth for you to make you not like it. As within money, I don't know how you could have grown up and just liked money or liked marriage. These things came about before we were born. So what made you like them was the fact that you grew up with them. That's why I say, like history books and everything, they tell a veiled story. Just a nice story so you'll believe it. Just like you believe in money, you believe in these things, these contraptions, this result, that result. And that's why a lot of people don't stray from the paths of Republican and Democrat, because they're there. And that's why a lot of people say, well, if you want a third party, we'll create a third party. Independent. But the thing is, no independent person has ever been in virtual power of things. And Republican and Democrat are the same numbers. If I were to look on a computer at the ones and zeros, both of them would be owned by both branches, both sides, because the way a lemon tastes when it's really freshly picked is exactly how the lies are told to us. It's so fresh. That's why you believe it, because it's so fresh. But can you travel back and forgive or use sorries to get in better with people? Only if we mean it, compared to treating people as things and using them. And a lot of times I have gone back and said sorry to people and apologized, But at the same time, we can only mean it individually, I can only go back and say I'm sorry. The other person doesn't say anything. And some people haven't at all, and that's good. I'm glad that some people didn't say anything, because it proved that nothing else needed to be said by them. And I think that's what I mean by can you travel back and forgive to get better with people? In some ways, I think you can. Because it isn't really about that individual. It's about what really counts to that individual. If that individual sees something more important through the quality and the quantity of what you give them, rather than just, I'm going to say sorry, then it's always going to be that way. So it's better that that person has left your life, because what you give isn't what they want to receive. And that's what comes down to with any friendship or relationship. If what you give somebody isn't what they want to receive, in a lot of ways I'm glad that a lot of friendships have ended, because what they perceived as my, giving nature isn't what I am. So in fact, when we give things based on our own promises, based on what we are, it doesn't necessarily mean the other person's going to define those promises the same way. You know, and that's why you got to do something if you mean it, compared to treating people as things and using them. Like, to me, if I wanted to treat people as things, I wouldn't have took the time to tell them my feelings, or even give them a slight answer to it in some way. And I think that's what really happened, and that's what has happened before. But being used by people, I never felt that way. Now, not to say I never felt at points where somebody could have come back and talked to me in some way. A while ago, back in 2007, that could have occurred, but nobody did anything, and that's fine. You know, if it doesn't come from the heart, then it's probably, you know, that's where a lot of people say, well, you had feelings for me, but you didn't say anything, so it means that the way you act with me is a lie. No, it isn't. It's just that even if I did say anything, you've already shown what kind of person you are with your feelings. I'm not that type of person, yet I have feelings for you. And not in a way of like, oh, well, I need to hide them. But there's no way for me to establish a connection with you if that's how you're going to break it down before I even get to try. And you can't cry if you tried. You know, that's where a lot of people say like, oh, no, you know, you didn't cry for me, so you obviously don't care about me. That's stupid. That's the worst thing you could say to somebody, because if you try to do something, it's impossible to try to make sense of what you're feeling when you're doing something with your heart truly. That is your crying. The real tears have passed, and all our true hearts, desires, failures, and successes. So, if somebody says you have to cry, no you don't. What you've tried with your heart's desires, with the failures and successes, is your tears. It's your tears. Everything you've done is your tears. I'm not saying I never cried, because I have. Oh man. But a lot of times not in front of people. And not because I don't want to in front of people, but a lot of times because when I did cry, it didn't come from a point. It didn't come from a point where somebody was around me. And it already had occurred. You know, what I tried to say was a lot more important though. So I paid attention to that. And I said, whoa, I need to hear an answer from this. It's impossible to try to make sense of what you're feeling when you're doing something with your heart. You know, if you do something with your heart and you try to say, well, you know, you didn't do something this way, but I did ask you and you didn't want to answer. So how am I supposed to get you to answer something that you don't want to answer? What's more important? Crying or getting you to answer something about how you feel? If I wanted failure in this, if I wanted success in this, anything, you have to give an answer to yourself. You know, death of frantic fathers, trying, and a wish to be better. Okay, death of frantic fathers, and a wish to be better in bed. And that's the kind of thing that comes from this stupid concept of, well, a lot of people's fathers weren't so good. Negotiable right there. And that's where the definition of a lot of people come up with the next father, with the next person, with the next man. Oh, well, your father wasn't good, so you're probably not either. And that's why a lot of people base it off the physical aspects a lot of times, because, well, I know he's not going to be a good man anyway, so I might as well just look for sex only. And that's where you end with me. Because if you're already judging me with the reputation that you created, oh my God, you're out of the picture. This is knife time, open knife. My father taught me a lot more because he went away. I'm glad he did. Because he taught me a lot more because he went away. So a wish for me to be better in bed, or you to be better in bed, is stupid. Kiss you, holding you, hugging you, cuddling you would be all I need. The rest will happen, and no distraction. But it will happen because we're synced on what we believe of each other, not of what we think of each other. So fate helps people to not take responsibility for their actions. Fate to many means no control. you know, when fate has to have control. And the control is not over you, it's your control over yourself for your fate. For that fate. So when somebody says like, oh, you have no control over fate, of course you don't. You have control over yourself. So to create a fate, or not even create a fate, to be yourself, to be in that kind of condition, you have to control yourself. You can't control fate. You're gonna look at an anonymous concept that you have to control? Or are you gonna look at what you feel? Find it there. Emotions are the drop point, the drawbridge of everything. So when you define another quality besides what you feel as the means to get something or get someone, it's the last thing you're going to get. And that's what I mean by you don't have control over fate. You have control of yourself. And I think that's what it means to help, to not take responsibility for their actions, you know. Fate to many, like I said, means control. To many, when fate has to have control, and the control is not over you, it's that control of yourself for that fate. In some way or another, it doesn't mean you're going to get that fate. But for you to control yourself, it means a lot more than what image of fate you have that will have a dictation over you. Because if you feel that way about it, how do you know fate isn't really the other person that you're getting with? So what if you think they're trying to control you? Let me see how long you would last in that. Because that's what fate really does. It creates an image, of an obnoxious image of the person you're trying to get. Fate has no control over me. I control my own destiny. Does that matter? Because if you control your own destiny, where does it end? Where does your creation and method end? You know, you buy your cares away. It's really about that putting things, rules, laws, security before your care. It's all brought up and said to be tough love when in fact it's just tough. It's not love. You know, I law you, I rule you, I security you. I put things in front of you. But it's all because I love you. No, you can't buy your cares away with that. And I think a lot of people do. They buy their cares away with inanimate objects, but they also buy their cares away with rules, laws, and regulations, so they don't have to care. So with the shooting that just happened recently, let's ban guns, because they don't want to have to care about the people who died. Let's just ban guns. And let me put a bulletproof vest on my kids when they go to school. Well, what does that show? That doesn't show any care for the people who died. That shows care and insecurity for self. It doesn't show that you care about the people who died. It shows that you want to bury yourself in your cares. But you also want to bury yourself in your cares so much that you don't want to give it out to anybody. Even the people that died. Even the people that were killed. Even the kids that were killed. Instead, no, we're just going to be tough about it. We're going to ban guns. That's what we're going to do. Because I don't know how to use my care, so all I know how to do is just throw rules and laws and regulations against people around me. That's all I know how to do. I don't know how to throw my care around. Fixing the world does not have to do with converting people. It's about accepting people. And not acceptance in the regular statutory way that we always think. Like we accept everything people do. No. That's stupidity. That's the one thing that bases people to say, no, we don't have to accept people at all. Is because there's rape, molestation, violence, abuse. So we say we don't need to accept people. So as long as there's those violences around, no. You know, that's the one thing. Love and hate, love and war are going to be in a perpetual state until you finally see that you can give care. Unlike just giving laws, rules, and regulations and security to people and assurances to people and converting people. If you want to actually have a definite quality that's going to be opposite of that, you have to accept that there is different qualities than that. So accepting the kind of qualities we live in now is a sham of your character to change who you are and who I am. So to say that we're going to be better people, you would have to establish the kind of conditioning that is together. We're not going to be together if all you see is separation. We're not going to be together if all you see is separation. Because that's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing at the end of the day. When you walk through all these lines of what, you care about, saying that you care about this, you care about that, when in fact you're throwing rules, laws, and regulations against everything, then you don't care about anything. All you care about is your own discrediting of other individuals, of other people in the world. That's why conversion is an easy thing to look at. That's why rules, laws, and regulations and security and assurances from other people, from demands to other nations and other countries, other continents, is the way to go. Because if a governmental system has the right to go through its own governmental powers to the end of its continents and country, if we have the right to do that, why don't other countries? Why do we need to stop them? Intervention is the easiest scapegoat of any civilization. But more so now, because that's the difference now compared to when we had other people in power, or we had the Roman Empire, where they just went to other places to gain more ground, to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and become an empire. Nowadays, we just, we facelifted with the UN, with saying that everybody has a right to vote, when the top 6 nations are the only ones who can override anybody else's below that. Below the top 6 nations, anybody else will be discredited and shut down. So they have the right to speak there, but their votes don't count for shit. The top 6 ones, of course they do. China, you damn right they do. United States, you damn right it does. But the whole point is, it was created by us. So to say that something is fair is misleading, because it already was created by one beneficiary. And that's where, like, for example, like my grandma's saying, and I just say this at the end here because I want to make a point. I don't care to get my money from my grandma. I hope she donates it and does something else with it, because I don't want it. I don't want it. The one thing that I would never do to anybody out there, and I want you to know this, is ever put something on you if I give you money. Is ever put something on you if I give you something. Yes, I want something in return, but I want you in return. Not in the kind of like a sexual entendre way or a friendship way, gonna force a friendship on you. No. I want you to be here because you want to be here, not because anybody else doesn't want to be here. And I think that's what fixing the world means. It's not coming from like the past, the future, anything like that. When we ask to be a better person in life, or when we ask to be a different person in life, when we ask to look at the rapidity of violence in the world, we don't ask ourselves what can create that. One of the major things is what I just said. When you buy your cares away. When you buy your cares away, you're destroying the concept of what you care about. You're destroying your care. You're saying that your care is not more important than what you get. Your care is not more important than what you receive. Your care is not more important than all the rules you could put against and laws somebody. Your security and assurances are not your own. So to say that you care in some way, if you really care about people, why would you slam all the needs you have on your government? Why would you put it all on them? Even in that way, let's say the official story is true or something about everything. Why would you put the responsibility on people who've been responsible for so much already? You're going to throw the responsibility onto them again? At some point, you have to take the responsibility yourself. Not because, they don't have to take any responsibility at all, but if you've already shown that you always show comfort to the soldiers, you always try to, give patriotism to all the people who fought and to all the firefighters, to everybody. If you're doing that, you can't just do that with a nice fundraiser. Just make them feel good. You have to make sure that you're keeping yourself on watch too. That your assurance and security is developed in yourself. So whether or not all this stuff is true or not, which I personally don't believe, because I think based on that evidence right there, that we give our cares away like that, all those cares that we gave away, do you think we're the only ones that do that? Do you think you're the only ones who do that? Or do you think the people in power do that too? Give our cares away. So, my abundance of this is just to say that there is no instinct to take away than taking away what we already have. So if I were to tell you that the rapidity of violence from corporations and banks are much more than I can, then all it really tells you is that when you buy your cares away, it's all about not using your care. It's all about not using your care. It's all about saying that rules, laws, and regulations will take care of the rest. A prison will do. A prison will do. So there is no rapidity of violence if you don't want it. Love and war, a hasty relationship that continually bypasses an unknown road. An unknown road. And this is love speaking when it comes down to it. No hippie. No hippie. Love.